Hi guys, it's Amy Catherine here, and I created this video to help people who've never had a reading before know what to expect from their first reading, the ins and outs, and etiquettes and do's and don'ts. Okay, so getting your first reading can be a little intimidating because psychics have been heavily misinterpreted in Hollywood and in movies. You know, you have that old, like, gypsy lady in the haunted house with the crystal ball going, you know, oh, the death guard, you're going to perish, or that's all totally like Bravo Sierra. It is not true. Getting your first reading shouldn't be scary at all. Getting your reading should actually be quite fun and can even be a little entertaining. So a little bit of a backstory on me. I was 18 when I first got my very first psychic reading. It was a tarot reading. It was in a haunted house in Alabaster, Alabama, and I went in and I was like, I ain't gonna tell them nothing. They aren't gonna know anything about me. And sure enough, the reader didn't ask a whole lot of questions, and the cards and the spread was like right on. It was amazing, and I was hooked. And since then, I've given a lot of readings, and let me tell you that it can be very empowering to get a reading, and it can be very fun, and it can be very insightful. Nobody ever actually needs a reading. It's not mandatory. You can go your whole life without ever having a psychic reading and being just fine. Everybody's psychic, and all psychic gifts come from God. We all have a right to talk to God and a right to talk to our loved ones who've crossed over. How much you're psychic depends usually upon how interested you are in the field. Just because Michael Phelps is an Olympic swimmer doesn't mean that he's the only one entitled to the pool. Anybody who tells you differently, especially when it comes to psychic readings, generally that tends to be a bit of an ego thing. What we do with our gifts is what determines good from bad. The hammer isn't good or bad. The hammer can build a house, or it can hurt somebody. The hammer itself is neither good nor bad. It's the purpose behind that hammer that really makes it good or bad. Just remember that God and the universe is love-based, and that messages that are love-based and unite us are what come from God. Anything else that is lower vibrating, fear-based, separates us and says, oh, you're going to go to hell if you do this, or, you know, you need to do exactly this thing this way in order to be right by God. That's not love-based, and that's not a message from God. In the end, all gifts come from God, and being psychic is just using the gifts that God's given you, and as long as you're honoring them with love in your heart and doing the right thing and doing things with a purpose from a love-based perspective, it's always going to be doing the works of God. When we do things selfishly and do things from an ego-based perspective, judge others, gossip, compare ourselves to others, say that someone else is in the wrong and I'm in the right, that's not really doing something from a place of love. It's doing something from a place of judgment, and God loves us unconditionally. So when you're doing things with love and compassion in your heart, you're always doing things that honor God. So why do we see psychics? Why would you want to see a psychic? Psychics help us understand what's going in our life from an energetic perspective, from a higher consciousness sense of perspective. There are different types of psychics, but when a lot of people come to see me, they want to get messages from their angels, guides, and also loved ones who've crossed over. And all those messages are usually empowering. They're there to help you, not to scare you. And usually when people who've crossed over come through, they want to let people know, their loved ones who are alive, that they're okay and that they are not in pain and that they are working with them and sending messages to them from the other side. Not all psychics are the same. Every psychic is different. Just as our fingerprints are different, so are psychics and their reading styles. Some psychics are known for being psychic mediums, and that's kind of all that they do. Others are medical intuitives. Some people just channel. They just go to town. They just talk to God. Some people like to use divination tools. Like, I like to use tarot cards. I know some people who play with poker decks some people who use, and they not just play with the poker decks, they actually do card readings with poker decks. And some people who use Zener cards. I know some people who do and use pendulums pretty actively. And I know some people who scry. So not everybody's going to be the same. So what I'd like you to do is when you're looking to get your first psychic reading, go do your research. Not every psychic is created equal, and not every psychic is going to necessarily do the exact thing you want them to do. So if you're wanting a palmistry reading, look for a good palmistry reader. If you're wanting a good astrology reading, then look for a reputable astrologer. You get what you pay for with readings too. So for example, there are something called a psychic fair. Many places around the world, especially in large metropolitan areas, they have something called psychic fairs, which is when you get to pay a certain amount, usually about $20 or so, and you get like a 20-minute or 15-minute reading. Think of that as a sample reading. What those readers are doing is they're building up their clientele and their network, and that reading is not necessarily going to be the same as a reading you've paid $200 or $300 for an hour-long session. The longer the session, the more you can get into detail with something. So I'd recommend doing your research and see who's reputable. And if you're going to pay $20 for a reading, I think that's a great start if you've never had a reading before. I like to call people who've never had readings before psychic virgins. So you're kind of like getting that experience for the first time. It's great if you kind of don't want to spend a whole lot, but you want the experience. But just please note that they may not have time to get into really deep detail of what you're going through and answer all of your questions. So just think of psychic fairs as a demo reading and as a taste of what the psychic can do. If you really like the psychic reading, what you can do with that psychic is actually contact them if they have a business card outside of the psychic fair and pay for a session or book a session that's longer. I like to go for a minimum of 30 minutes for my sessions, and even then that feels rushed. I've done sessions in upwards of 90 minutes, and I know some people have done sessions for 3 or 4 hours. It's like, I don't know how long, I don't think I could go that long, but there's different strokes for different folks. And just remember that there needs to be an exchange. So you're paying $20, you're going to get a $20 reading. If you're paying for a $150 reading, you're going to get $150 value from that reading. Whatever you put into it is whatever you're going to get back energetically. There needs to be an exchange there. Reading etiquette. Here are some things that you can do, and here are things that you should avoid when you're getting your first reading. So my number one pet peeve is gossip. Don't gossip, don't go into third-party information. I don't care if you are looking to see if your ex-boyfriend has hooked up with somebody else or if he's coming back to you. His life is his business. A good psychic does not give third-party information, and a good client does not ask for third-party information. Unless it is your child and your child is under 18, or it is an emergency situation with somebody who has gone missing and it's a life or death thing, anybody else's business is not your business. For example, you wouldn't go over to your neighbor's house, break in and sort through their things and be really nosy about what's going on in their life. Just because a psychic can pry and look into third-party information doesn't mean they should. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it's right. So when you're looking into getting a reading, see, when it comes to relationships especially, see what the karma is behind that relationship, that connection between you and that other person, and why you're going through that. Because that is going to help you understand what you're going through and why you're going through it better than being a busybody and trying to pry into what's going on in their life. So another pet peeve of mine is cell phones. I encourage you to record the reading with your cell phone, and many cell phones, including Samsung Galaxy and Androids and the iPhones, all of them have free recording apps on their phones. So what you can do before your reading is go into the Apple App Store or the Play Store, the Google Play Store, and download a free microphone app. But other than that, please silence your phones. It's really rude to text and talk on the phone in the reading. I've had it happen before. You're wasting my time and you're wasting your time that you paid for to be on the phone in a reading. It's just super rude. You wouldn't do it in a theater. Same thing with a psychic reading. It's just very highly disrespectful. When it comes to readings, keep an open mind. Usually what happens, and what almost always happens when I give psychic readings, is that I'll start channeling and somebody comes in with questions and their guides and angels start to show them the bigger picture. Like, you've got this, you want whatever, what's ever going on in like this little square. and they really zoom out. They really show you what is going on the bigger scale and what the underlying lessons are from the life experiences that are happening in your life. So what's best to do when you're getting a psychic reading is don't get hung up on the details, really keep an open mind, and it's also important to listen to your intuition. I encourage people to take notes and to listen to their own intuition, because again, I'm not special, everybody's psychic. Your guides and angels are going to give you messages through thoughts, ideas, feelings. Sometimes people will see a vision or see a flash of something. They'll see colors. They'll get the feely feels, your clairsentience, your empathy. It's important to listen to your intuition in a reading, and that's also going to help you spot the ethics of a reader. If the intuitive hits are correct, you're going to feel like it's right. It's going to be love-based. It's going to be non-judgmental. You're going to be like when you taste something really good and you want more of it, that's what your body's going to do. When the reading is in an ego-based standpoint, you're going to feel a little sick. Your body's going to want to shut off. You might feel really drained or sad or tight on the inside. That is when your body is saying, no, this isn't right. This isn't correct. I've had that happen to me before. I went to go see an astrologer at a Renaissance festival, and what happened was my guides told me before I sat down with the astrologer, they're like, listen to your intuition, channel while he's reading you. That astrologer gave me some really great astrology information, but as soon as they stopped channeling, as soon as they stopped listening to the astrology stuff, and then they inserted their own egoic comments, it was 180 degrees. It was completely different from what he was telling me. And had I taken and absorbed the stuff that was coming from his ego, from his lower vibration, versus really embracing the astrological message, I would have gone in a very different direction, and maybe in a direction that didn't serve my highest good. So when it comes to things that you're getting from the reader, don't take their word as God. Really digest it and process it and keep the things that resonate, and then just set the stuff to side that doesn't resonate with you. Also know that Spirit gives you what you need, not always what you want. Sometimes we want to answer this specific question, and Spirit gives you the underlying lesson behind that message and behind that experience. So when you keep an open mind, you're able to absorb and understand from a higher perspective what's really going on in your life. Okay, so here we're going to go into some red flags. Not all readers are created equal. You're going to have good readers, and then there's the readers that really try to, unfortunately, scam other people. And here is a list of red flags and things you should avoid, and know that the reader may not serve your best interest if they're doing one or multiple of the following. So first, I'd like to comment, most readers, about 60% plus, use their empathy and their clairsentience more so than channeling. There's a difference there, because your clairsentience is based on the realm of the world, the existing knowledge, versus when you're channeling, you're processing information from the divine, from your 7th and 8th chakras. This chakra right here and the one above, which is your guide space where your guides talk to you. Everybody has chakras. You can feel free to Google it. I might do a later video on that. But divine information is positive and empowering, and a lot of readers will just tell you what's going on in somebody else's life. They'll be a little bit gossipy. They'll judge. If they're doing that, then run for the hills. That's not somebody who's being very, very ethical, especially if you feel very drained after the reading, or they really didn't present to you any new information or any information on your future that is positive and empowering. Also, a reader should always tell the client that the client is always in control of their reality and their future. Free will is the law of the universe. It supersedes any of the physical laws of physics, and it supersedes everything. Your free will is what's changing your reality constantly. Your future is anything but fixed. All the Hollywood, fate, death card BS is just that. It's BS. Even when we choose to leave this world, we have a choice. We have multiple exit points. So that's the whole reason for living in this reality, is understanding how to make those decisions for ourselves and have the choice of making the decision that serves our highest good, or the decision that makes a lesson more challenging. Another thing that really kind of pushes my buttons is a reader saying, oh, you're cursed, or oh, you have blackness in your aura. I've heard story after story. I know a couple that went to New Orleans and they got married, and they'd been partying a little bit, and the minister, they had a voodoo wedding, I think, said that the bride was cursed and would remove the curse for $1,000. I've heard of another person say, oh, your aura's black, I'll remove it for $2,000. Or somebody who says, you've got a hex put on you, if you meet me back here at such and such time, I'll remove it for $200. So that is a scam. Don't take it and don't buy into it. If you absorb it, then you create it. But it's very, very rare for anybody to be cursed, and you can always remove any energy that people send to you, even if that's the case, and it's extremely rare when it does happen. A good reader would instead show you how to protect yourself and educate you on empathic and psychic hygiene. They won't try and take you back and milk you for more money. Also, never trust a reader that says you need more readings. Nobody needs readings. You can go your whole life without ever getting a psychic reading and be just fine. I always recommend to my clients, usually wait at least 30 days before you see any reader. I don't care. I'm not going to get hurt. My feelings aren't going to get hurt if you see another reader. What I want you to do is wait at least 30 days. I myself might get 5, maybe 6 readings a year. I really don't do it a whole lot, and oftentimes it's an exchange between me and a friend. And so be really wary of a psychic who says you need to come back for this or come back for X or whatever, because they're just trying to get more money out of you. If they can't do their job in a reading, and this is outside of a psychic fair, because 20-minute readings are pretty rushed. That should just be a demo anyway. But if somebody says that you need to come back for a reading, run for the hills. I've heard horror stories where people are constantly coming to see the psychic every day or every week, and the psychic saying, buy this for me, buy that. Is run for the hills. A psychic will never tell you, you need this from me. You can do just everything that they can do, and all they have is just the experience and the honed skill. You have that skill too, and the goal of a psychic is to empower their client and to remind the client that they have a right to connect to divine, and to remind them of that connection through channeling for the divine and educating their client. Anybody who's doing anything else is simply using you. Also be wary of psychics who try to scare you and try to intimidate you and send scary messages. That's not divine. Just as I previously stated that all divine messages are love-based, messages from the ego are not. When readers are trying to say, oh, you're gonna get cursed, or oh, this person's sending negative energy at you, or oh, you're gonna get into a car wreck. First off, fate isn't fixed. When I get a message from divine and divine says, okay, I've been shown a fender bender before, instead of a psychic going, oh, you're gonna get a car accident, say, only drive as fast as your angels can fly. It's a little bit more funny. It's more empowering. Or, take your time while driving, or learn not to get stressed on the road, or just drive cautiously. You can avoid things by being in a love-based place, because you're going to give, this includes readers too who are listening to this and watching this, that if you deliver the message from a love-based place versus a place of fear, the person's going to digest it and process that information in a way that serves their highest good. What I also don't like about psychics who are not ethical is that sometimes they'll make your choices for you. I've had people come and ask me, should I get divorced? Should I leave him? Should I leave her? Should I take this job? It's not the psychic's goal, or it's not really in the psychic's power to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. They lay the options before you, and they show you how divine can help you make your own choices. But it's really highly important for a psychic to never rob their client of those choices, because you're interfering with their free will. So don't go to the psychic and ask them what you should or shouldn't do. Ask them instead how divine can send them guidance and what the divine messages are. Oftentimes when people are going through really hard choices and they don't know what to do, divine will tell them that divine will send them a sign. And it's usually outside of the reading. The reason is because if I told you to say, leave your husband, that's me swaying that free will. And the thing is that it takes two to tango. There's a lot more free will than just yours and just the psychic's free will. Some people can change. Some people choose not to. It's not in the power of the psychic to determine what's good and what serves your highest good in life. We're simply messengers, and that's all we are. When we step outside of being that messenger for a higher power, we are stepping inside our ego. And that's why it's important for us to be hands-off when it comes to making your decisions for you. What's another thing that you should look out for is psychics who really hover around reactions. A good psychic doesn't need to hear a word from the client. I like to give cold readings. That's usually how I like to start my readings. And I oftentimes close my eyes so I don't see the client's reactions. Oftentimes I will have to ask them, I'll have to confirm yes or no. I'll do a simple yes or no. This is what I'm getting. Does this make sense? Yes or no. Or I'll tell them what I'm getting for a minute. I'll go for maybe sometimes 10-20 minutes just talking about what I'm getting with my eyes closed because I don't want to see their face and their reaction. And then the client will start doing the Q&A if they have any questions. A good psychic doesn't need to ask the questions of what's going on in your life, and a good psychic can give you a good channel reading regardless because we're just the messengers. The good psychics are just the messengers. We just step to the side and let God take the wheel, so to speak. What you should look out for is a psychic that's constantly looking at your face for reactions and trying to really kind of glean from your face and listen to the words that you're saying. So, and if they keep hovering around that one thing they got a right hit on and they're not really giving you a whole lot more information, it's because they're either reading you empathically or they're not reading you at all. So when it comes to giving a reader information, be very clear, but also be simple. Try not to give them a whole lot of emotional reactions. And a good reader is someone who doesn't need to see you to give a reading. That's why I love phone readings, because I don't need to see your face. I'm just telling you what I'm getting, and I love it because I'm right. And I'm just standing there with divine energy, and they're just like, you hit it on the head before I even asked my question. So really be cautious of readers who try to look at your face and try and see, what your reactions are. Or readers that are trying to pull the Barbara Streisand, readers that are like, they try to make you cry. And I mean, sometimes people will cry in readings, but that's not my goal. My goal is to empower. So be very cautious of readers who are emotionally manipulative. Last but not least, any reader who delivers messages of pain or sadness are not delivering divine messages. Your loved ones on the other side are not lost or in pain. If someone says that they are lost or in pain, it's because they're not picking up on that person's energy, or that person does not wish to speak to the psychic. I've personally experienced this where somebody comes through, they're like, I'm here, but I don't want to talk to the person that you're reading. I'm like, okay, they don't want to talk. But when sometimes, unfortunately, psychics don't know how to discern between getting a correct message and the person on the other side goes, I don't resonate, or I don't want to come forward. Sometimes that happens where the person who's crossed over doesn't wish to speak, or they're not ready to speak. And sometimes as the client, you need to be prepared for that. But usually they do, or they'll at least say, I just don't feel comfortable speaking. Our loved ones on the other side are not lost, they're in pain. It took me a long time to get over this because I was raised Southern Pentecostal in Central Alabama. So it was really hard growing up with these gifts and being around people and being able to hear things and know things about them that they never told me. And when I started seeing people who crossed over, it freaked me out a little bit because it was pounded into my head that psychic mediums were of the devil. And I realized that part of the reason why some people put limiting scriptures in was to control people, unfortunately. And I realized that there isn't a hell, and that people who crossed over are on the easy track, so to speak. That this part right here is the hardest part, because this is the part in free will. When we come outside of our bodies, we become more expansive, and we're now spiritual creatures. We're always spiritual creatures, but we're even more aware and conscious of that spirituality because we are no longer in the physical and in that physical body. And people who are crossed over, they don't have that body, so they're no longer in pain. They're at peace. They are starting to, they come out of their ego. People who are angry are oftentimes a lot more at peace when they've crossed over. They try to send us messages from the other side. So sometimes you'll get a blue feather, or you'll see coins, or you'll hear a song that reminds you of that loved one that crossed over. That's them saying hi. And sometimes even your angels will give them jobs to do to help assist you from the other side. So when people cross over, crossover, they usually try to give positive, and they usually give affirmations and empowering messages. And when somebody is channeling somebody who's crossed over, when a psychic is channeling somebody who's crossed over, they are usually able to determine like who it is, if it's your dad or if it's your cousin or whatever, what they looked like or what their personality was like, what they've said, signs that they send you, things that they did in life. Those are confirmations. And so sometimes the person that you expect to come through isn't always the first person to come through. So if you're looking for a mediumship reading, then be prepared that more than one person might come through, and it's usually the person who's the loudest that likes to come through first. I would recommend that before your first reading, ask your loved ones, if you want mediumship to be a part of that reading, ask your loved ones to come forward and say, hey, I'm doing this mediumship reading on such and such date. You can say it out louder in your head and say, please show up, please be there, please send me signs that you're there. And guess what? They'll be there. I've had that happen before, and I'm like, why am I getting anxiety? I feel like something's here. And I'm like, did so-and-so cross over? Like, yeah, I told him to be here. It's like, well, he's here. He's in my face. So that's how you know the difference between a good reader and a bad reader. The bad readers will want to scare you. They'll want to scare you into getting more readings or make you feel down or out and want more from them. A good reader makes you feel empowered, and a good reader will never expect you to come back. They'll be happy when you do. I mean, I'm glad that I have clients that really like me so much that they like to see me again, but they don't ever request or expect you to come back. When I give a reading assuming that that is the first and last reading that I give to somebody. So it's really important that you walk away feeling like your questions have been answered. Here are some of the ways to tell that you're getting a good reading. So like I was saying earlier, a good reading is positive, it's empowering. A good reading energizes you. You feel like you're on the right track. You feel like you've gotten clarity. You feel like the universe loves you. You might even feel a little bit lighter, because that's usually your channel's opening up too. If the psychic's channel's opening up, your channel's going to open up too, and that's your connection to divine. You feel a little bit more at peace, you feel loved, and you feel like the universe is working in your favor. A good psychic will always respect your boundaries, so it's important to say, okay, too much, because sometimes the psychic will go into details that you may not be ready to hear, or talk about someone or a situation that you may not have emotionally processed or want to work through on that reading. Let the psychic know. Say, nope, I don't want to go there. I appreciate that, but I'm just not comfortable going that far or going in that direction. And they'll usually be like, okay. They won't pry and they won't assume or make any judgments. A good psychic makes you feel comfortable. A good psychic can be funny when it's appropriate, and a good psychic is always empowering. We're not Pollyannas. We're not by no means saying, you should wear rose-colored glasses and just everything is daisies and sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's really challenging. But a good reader, regardless of the situation that you're going through, will remind you that you're in control. And not everybody wants to hear that. Some people don't want to hear the responsibility, but be prepared that, if you're going to see a good reader, you are going to be reminded that you're always in control and can handle the situation. So I hope you liked this video. I hope that's educated you on how to, prepare and what to expect from your first reading. And if you have any additional questions, let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe to see future videos and future content. I come out with weekly readings on Sundays and every week. And I also have a newsletter that you can sign up for, where subscribers get free access to monthly readings as well, and monthly astrology reports that give you heads up on special days of the month that you can use energetically to your advantage. You can also book a reading with me online in the links below. I can do both phone and web readings. If you like the webcam, if you live out of state, it's perfect. If you are in Georgia and are near the Atlanta area, you can come see me at Forever and a Day in Woodstock, Georgia. I have their website listed below, and you should be sure to call them for appointments. You can't book appointments online yet. So it has been a pleasure, and please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. So I will see you later.